So, I've been playing the hottest new card game. You may have heard of it. It's called Fire Emblem Cipher. For those of you not in the know, it is the official Fire Emblem trading card game that ran from 2015 to 2020. And I kind of really like this game more than any other card game currently. If you're a fan of Fire Emblem, it's pretty easy to pick up, and it is pretty fun. And as a Yu-Gi-Oh player, it is really awesome that I get to play a game without looking at a canine card. It also helps that it is a Discord game where you have to go out of your way to actually find someone else to play a game with, instead of going on ranked and fighting against some abstract antagonistic force. So, I really like this game, and I made a deck profile just for you, but don't tell anyone else. It's our little secret. Chrom is a mid-range toolbox deck that plays a whole bunch of the good blue cards, and maybe a few that might have lied on their job application. The deck revolves around the Chrom from set 22, commonly referred to as Chrom, like the deck, and for flipping a bond and discarding a card, you can deploy a blue 1 or 2 cost from the retreat at the start of your deployment phase, and when a card is class changed, you get to draw one more card. This card is very no-nonsense, which hopefully makes this video easier to understand for the few people who may not have played the discontinued Japan-only Fire Emblem card game. So your game plan is to have a bunch of the low costs in retreat, and you want the class changes in your hand so that you can just toolbox into whatever you need. It is pretty bond efficient. You are only flipping 1 or 2 a turn, and you're not really deploying too many cards a turn. So you don't really need to play the ramp cards, and it grinds pretty well, mostly due to Chrom drawing an extra card off of class change. But not all things can be good, so this deck has some issues. One is that it is a very low ceiling deck. It does not do anything crazy, and it will lose to any deck that does anything crazy. It absolutely loses to any aggro deck that is faster than it, because you will just die before you can get your game plan online. It struggles into anything in the backline. Your options for hitting the backline are few and far between. And if they have enough ranged attackers, you do just die. Unless you draw, the good stuff. Is an FTK. Especially if it's in the backline, what do you do? So basically, if you're ever up against Hana, then you're in for a really, really fun matchup.
Chrom! Shoot him! Stop shooting! Shots fired, shots fired.
Now I'm angry. Anything can change.
Set 22 Chrom is definitely way worse than Set 8 Chrom, which is probably one of the best decks in the game currently. But the thing about Set 8 Chrom is that deck is just Sigurd and Julia in a trench coat. And what's the point of playing Chrom if I can't use any of Chrom's friends? So I think this deck is pretty good, but I did build it for a tournament, and lost every set I brought it to, so your mileage may vary. So this opener is not amazing. There's no main promo, and we have no useful class changes in our hand, other than the samurai, of course. But, spoiler alert, we do not deploy this guy even once this game. On turn 1, there really isn't any point in deploying anything, since you can't attack if you go first. Hitting the self on the first attack of the game is really funny, but they do hit with the Mei. This Chrom is pretty good. On class change, you can move any enemy, and we bring the Mei forward because ranged attackers tend to become problematic if we leave them on field for too long. Our opponent walls up and moves Tiki to the back. And since we don't have main promo, we might as well play this Chrom. Standard monochrome lists elect to play Exalt in this slot instead as a late game option, but I think that kind of totally sucks ass. When you class change into this Chrom, you can give one ally plus 20 for each card stacked underneath Chrom until the end of the opponent's turn. And you can also flip 2 blue bonds to add a Chrom from your retreat to your hand. It's pretty much only a contingency for exactly this scenario, but it did come up, so I'm actually a very skilled deck builder. My opponent cannot break through the impenetrable wall and just chooses to pass while doing nothing. But to be fair, we also don't have a whole lot we can do than swing. My opponent plays their Tiki class change. This Tiki gains plus 30 if she attacks first, and if she destroys an enemy with her attack, she can play the top card of the deck into the bond zone. I guess I have to explain what the brown cards do. The brown cards have Crest Power skills, which instead of activating on field, activate in the hand. And they're basically like spell cards or trainer cards or whatever Magic has. Linhardt just lets you draw a card while looking at an orb. It's pretty alright. I don't know why I allowed Tiki to do Tiki things when I had dodges. I'm sorry, everyone. I made a severe lapse in judgment. I do draw our monochrome, but I can't really do anything with it at the moment since the class changes in our hand are less than ideal. But you can't even use Chrom skill on the turn you class change because it only triggers at the start of your deployment phase, so it doesn't really matter. My opponent puts yet another color in their bonds and deploys Larum. Larum's a dancer, and most of them have the effect to tap themselves and flip some amount of bonds to untap an ally. And Larum lets you draw a card when you do that, so that's something. I actually used 10% of my brain and dodged the Tiki attack this time, but they just untap with Larum, so I have to dodge again. But it's fine, because I have the second dodge in hand. Now that my opponent has cards that actually do things on the board, I can use Chrom skill to bring out Female Robin. And most of the low costs are pretty unnoteworthy outside of their support skills, but Female Robin's 2 costs, that's a pretty good card. On deployment, it gives any blue ally other than herself plus 20, and that's pretty good. Robin female class change is the button. You just click it when there's something scary that you want gone. It destroys non-main character enemies up to the number of class changed allies you control. And typically you would use it when there's something scarier than a 1 cost 30 attack mage on the board. But like, I just really wanted the card draw here.
What's going on?
Tiki has just been getting whooped this entire game. There was no universe where that attack should have hit. I definitely should have used Robin female's skill to give her 40 attack so the attack would be guaranteed. But I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. I forgot that Robin female could do that. My opponent has 7 bonds, so Tiki's skill is active, which gives all dragon allies plus 10 attack. Lind is not a good card, but it is pretty funny. What Lind does is she gets very large, maybe the largest I've ever seen. You could also flip 4 bonds to draw up to 5 cards in your hand. How could I forget? It clears my female Robin, at least, but like, to what end? Chrom uses his skill in order to pick up his daughter from soccer practice. And then I bring out Naga, God's gift to blue decks. What Naga does is you flip 1 bond and you can class change a blue ally using a card in the retreat. And when an ally is class changed, she puts herself in the bonds face down and gives all allies 20 attack for the rest of the turn. Naga is probably one of the most broken cards in the entire game. It is so good. And we use that to bring out the actual best card in the deck. When Lucina's class changed into, you can flip a bond and deploy any 4 cost or lower blue card from your retreat. Most of the time your target is Frederick, but you may be graced enough to have...
Hey, I'm the fucking green lizard from Mario.
No, he's pretty good. When she attacks first, you can add a bond to your hand, and when you have 7 or more bonds, she gets plus 30 attack. Noe does way more stuff than Frederick, but you really can't get much use out of her unless you have at least 8 bonds. I probably could have attacked with Noe first to grab a bond without lowering her attack, because I did have 8 bonds, but I guess there was like a bug on my keyboard and I got distracted or something. My opponent does the forbidden technique of raw deploying overclass May and then class changing that into another overclass May. The overclass cards all have like really stupid effects on them when you class change them. And what May does is that when you class change into her, all enemies cannot be untapped next turn. She also gains plus 20 when attacking main character, but they just go for the Lucina because they have the crit. Unfortunately for them, I just have the second Lucina in hand. I definitely could have just deployed the 1-cost Lucina in my hand. I don't know why I used Chrom's skill here, because it's just a waste in bonds. The gas leak must be worse than I thought. And because we already have Noe on board, we are forced to use Lucina in order to go into the most mediocre card in the entire deck. Of the cards you can go into, Frederick is like the least bombastic of them. Once per turn, he gives himself and Chrom +10, and if he's class changed, he can move as many blue allies as you desire. Frederick's attack buff lasts until the end of the opponent's turn, and making himself and Chrom an 80 base is good enough. Frederick is like okay. He's like the most okay card ever. You could probably play like something else, but I'm too stubborn to do that. So also, you can't deck out in this game BT dubs. If you run out of cards in your deck, you just shuffle your retreat back into your deck, just in case you thought this game wasn't long enough.
Which hand of the witch hand will it be?
This is the most obnoxious thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Witch Celica is a card only used by the most devious of little tricksters. You tap her and flip 3 bonds in order to de-class change your opponent's main character. This effect is very disruptive, and I would have been pretty upset if I didn't have a whole stack of Chroms underneath my monochrome. And then I probably wouldn't have shown you this game. We both forget that you're supposed to tap Celica to do this skill, so you can call the gamer police on us if you want, but know that it would make us both pretty sad. Tiki hits Larum off of the support, and I do have to read Larum again in order to realize that my opponent is not cheating, and yes, Larum just lets you do that. Purple really is the most privileged color. So we're both down to 0 orbs, and I have no more dodges, so I do have to push for game this turn. Alphonse is my tech card of choice. His deployment cost is equal to your orbs, and he can prevent 1 or 2 cost enemies from destroying your main character. That last effect isn't coming up this game, but having a low cost beater in the late game is just nice. So all that's left is to swing everything we have into Tiki. So yeah, that's like Fire Emblem, I guess. I'm gonna go play Sonic now. Bye bye.